Hello, I'm Jo Miller, Managing Director at IPTF.
Hello, and I'm Vicky Churcher, Executive Director at IPTF. And together, we are here to bring you a week packed full of income protection focused content to help focus us all on growing the market and providing the best possible outcomes for customers.
That's right, IPAW, or Income Protection Action Week, is back. And whilst we have a week of new content for you in a new look studio, the principle behind IPAW remains the same.
IPAW is about being inspired, learning from peers and subject matter experts, and doing something different to grow your income protection sales. It's about keeping the momentum in the market and improving outcomes.
So, welcome to Income Protection Action Week. If this is your first IPAW, welcome. We hope the content you see this week inspires you to take action, to modify the way you work somehow and try something different with the aim of increasing income protection sales and ensuring more customers are financially resilient. If you're a returning viewer, we really appreciate your support of the IPTF. Thank you for your loyalty, and hopefully you've told some colleagues about IPAW too. And speaking of sharing IPAW with colleagues, we know there are a number of watch parties happening this week. So hello, if you're watching along with colleagues, please take a photo and share it on LinkedIn or Instagram using hashtag IPAW2025. If you're not already, please follow us on LinkedIn, Instagram, and we are now also on TikTok as the IPTF. Now, we know time is precious, so with that in mind, we've tried to make sure that every minute of the schedule is packed with informative, inspiring, and most importantly, helpful content. We've built on the feedback that you've given us and designed an agenda that is something for everyone, as well as a few surprises that you definitely won't be expecting. Remember that registration is simpler this year, as you only need to complete one form indicating which sessions you want to attend. If you want to go back in and add sessions, you can do this in the same way. You'll find the registration link on our website, iptf.co.uk. In return for watching, you'll receive a CPD certificate automatically for each session you attend the live broadcast for. So let's get started with IPAW 2025, and as in previous years, we're starting with a look at what is happening with IP sales and the market. On screen now, you'll see the Gen Re data from their Protection Pulse survey. According to Gen Re, 2024 saw the number of income protection policies sold increase by 15%. NMG also report an increase in intermediated IP sales between 2023 and 2024 of 19%, and their research suggests that many advisors have begun to sell income protection and express an interest in doing so for the first time, which is really exciting to hear.
It's great to report good news and for the market, and we do need to celebrate this fantastic growth. But the reality is that while sales are increasing, overall, income protection amongst the population remains low and a long way from where it should be to support a financially resilient population. Our Profile of an IP Customer report in association with Irish showed that only around 42% of UK households could last 3 months without their income, and only 7% of UK adults have any protection to cover their income at all. The LV Reaching Resilience report also highlighted the need to increase income protection to ensure a more financially resilient population.
We know that many people consider savings their plan B should the worst happen, but as we do every year, we feel it's important to emphasise why this isn't a good idea. The facts speak for themselves, whichever source of data you look at.
This really highlights the important role that good quality advice plays. Earlier this year, the FCA Financial Life Study highlighted that 28% of people were struggling financially and 11% had no disposable income.
It's now time for our panel discussion, where we chat with some advisors about why they include IP in their advice process and the impact it has. Let's take a look.
Hello, I'm really pleased to be hosting our very first discussion of what promises to be a fantastic week of education, insight, and most importantly, action. I'm delighted to be joined by 3 great advisors who are relatively new to advising and who will be sharing a refreshing insight into what they do and why they do it. So, a very warm welcome to Cameron Erskine, Tara Cohen and Kevin Margisha. Tara, if I can start with you. So you were or are primarily a mortgage broker. What prompted you to start talking to your clients about income protection, and why do you think it's important?
So, yeah, originally we primarily focused on just helping clients with mortgages. Then we focused on helping them with life insurance to protect that mortgage. But actually over time, and with the input from IPTF and compliance and consumer duty and doing the right thing for the customers, actually it started to make sense to actually start talking to them about protecting the income, because the mortgage is based on their income and them being able to afford the mortgage. So actually we need to make sure they can afford that mortgage, not just today, but long term. And that might be 25 years. Some mortgages are now 40 years. So that's a very, very long time. So it's something that I now lead with, protecting the income first. So that mortgage is paid, the bills are covered, they can still eat, all the really crucial things. And of course, critical illness cover and life insurance are important, but it's more likely that someone's going to be off work sick than they are, to die or suffer a critical illness. So income protection is really, really important. And so now I try to lead with that with clients and get them to understand that that is the real priority for them and their families.
Great, that sounds interesting. And yes, it is really important to eat. But like you say, covering the income is the most important thing.
It's absolutely crucial. You can't get a mortgage without the income.
No.
So, and also, previously I would say, let's get the insurance started once that mortgage completes. But actually, we have known, not in my experience, but I've known of other advisors where they've arranged the mortgage, it hasn't yet completed and someone has been off sick and they've got that income protection policy and it's started before the mortgage has even completed and they're still able to buy that house for their family. So yeah, it's a no-brainer, really.
It's powerful.
Yeah.
Thanks, Tara. Cameron, coming to you, what's your thoughts on advisors underestimating the actual benefit of income protection?
Absolutely. I think it's an unfortunate world that we live in where if it hasn't happened to you or someone you never think you need to claim on an income protection policy, and therefore lots of people don't have it. But you only have to look as far as LinkedIn or provider websites or even the IPTF 7 claims stories to see that these things actually do happen. And having products like this in place can make sure that a roof is kept over your head and food is stocked in the fridge and you're able to keep paying your mortgage and your bills and overall just continue to work towards your objectives that you set out at the start of your life.
Thanks, Cameron. I agree. I think the case studies particularly are really powerful. And as you say, there's lots of them on the website. There's 7 families case studies, but lots more. And the 7 claim stories that we're working on at the moment with Phil Deacon, who's leading it for us, is really showing the power of the story of the claim. And as you say, it can happen to any of us. Okay, now let's talk a little bit about regulation. I'll be speaking to Keith Richards, CEO of the Consumer Duty Alliance, later this week. But can I ask you, Kevin, as a new advisor, what have you struggled with most in this area? And conversely, how has it helped you? How's Consumer Duty helped you?
I think there's been a lot to navigate, especially coming in as a new advisor, particularly with suitability letters, ensuring the comparison report is particularly correct, especially with protection where things are interchangeable, especially with the underwriting and the premiums that may go up, they may go down. But I think overall it's helped me, as at the end of the day, you want to do what's best for the client, and these regulations are put in place for a particular reason to ensure the client is getting the best outcome. So I think to start with, it was a bit of a challenge, in all honesty. Some of us don't agree with all that paperwork. However, at the end of the day, you're doing what's best for the client and ensuring that they're receiving the best advice. So I think Consumer Duty has its niggles, but it is positive and it will continue to benefit the clients for the foreseeable.
It's to protect you and the client at the end of the day, isn't it?
Correct, yeah. I mean, it's Consumer Duty, the clue's in the title, isn't it? So, Cameron, whilst we're talking about regulation, you recently said at the IPTF mid-year event that you would like to see quicker, slicker application processes, so your clients are on risk much quicker and much easier. Can I ask you whether you think it's regulation that's stopping product providers making this happen, or something else?
I do think regulation does play a part in that. I think if you fill a cup with regulation, there's not going to be much room left for innovation and development and things like that. So I think, as we said, protecting the consumer, I think, is at the forefront of everything we do. But I do think there needs to be more innovation. I think there needs to be more accessible routes for clients to get income protection. And then we need to make it simpler for us to arrange income protection for our clients at the end of the day, because making the process simpler will mean that more clients get covered. And I know there are plenty of advisors out there who are not writing income protection because the process is rather complicated, or the paperwork, as Kevin mentioned. There are lots of things to bear in mind when making recommendations. And if you're someone who specialises in pensions or investments, for example, income protection can be quite a daunting subject. So making that process as smooth as possible, I think, is really important.
Okay. I mean, I think the FCA have come out recently and said that they are trying to simplify it. So we all look forward to seeing the results of that.
Absolutely.
It will certainly make everybody's lives much easier, and hopefully encourage more income protection conversations and protection conversations in general. Now let's talk a little bit about how an advisor builds their business. Tara, can you tell us a little bit about the initial challenges you faced in this area and what you've done to overcome them?
Yeah, so I think for me, originally I would start off putting out mortgage only content, and then started looking more at promoting protection side of the business. But sometimes it's a bit difficult to know what to say without getting bogged down in telling people about products. I need to convey more the benefits of actually having a policy and how that can protect a family and help them to improve or at least maintain their lifestyle. I'm not very confident on being on camera myself, so I've not done any videos, of myself, but I did actually create a little reel of, and it's like the Jenga blocks.
Okay.
And it had, mortgage, rent, utility bills, food, pets, mobile phone, holidays, birthdays. You want to do fun stuff as well. Life is for living. And then at the bottom it had income. Pulled out got my son to help me, pulled it out, and if the income is removed, everything falls apart. So that was really, really good. But yeah, it's finding the content and what you can put out there to really try and drive home the message of why income is so why income is so important. Yeah. But there's lots of people out there putting out really, really great content, and try and get some inspiration from them and try and be a bit more confident about putting stuff out there, maybe putting myself out there. But then, also thinking about making sure that any content that we put out on social media is compliant, checking that we've got the regulatory warnings on there, etc. So, try to convey the fun stuff as well as, the serious, important.
I absolutely love the Jenga idea. I think that's such a good visual, creative.
Yeah.
I must have a look at that video.
Yeah.
Really, really great idea.
It's a bit amateur, but it gets the message
but it
across.
Does. I mean, if you think you pull that away,
Yeah.
and it absolutely, paints the picture, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Thanks, Tara. That's great. Kevin, I noticed in the last few months you've been a lot more active on social media. Do you have anything to add to what Tara said?
Yeah, I just sort of echo what Tara was saying there. You're trying to find the balance between adhering to the social media promotions and making sure you're not putting any calls to actions that may seem inappropriate as such, as well as trying to get your message out there. So I think doing exactly what Tara said and, creating ideas like Jenga, things that are a bit different, that are going to catch attention, has really helped me. I also struggled to start with the confidence of actually getting my face out there. But I think I just looked at what other creators were doing and listened to some of the IPTF podcasts on some of social media, and that has really helped me since I've started putting my face out there and posting more content and following what other popular advisors are doing, not trying to reinvent the wheel as such. I've really seen some success and clients actually reaching out to me asking for a bit of guidance and possibly to book in a meeting. That's
really good to hear. It's encouraging. Cameron, anything to add to that?
Yeah, I tend not to use social media as much. I think I've not quite overcome the speed bumps that I think that you both have. I think as well the style of the business that I'm working on at the moment is referral only, and I'm trying to hone my skills in that area first before sort of branching out to a wider network. And I think it's impressive to see sort of the work that you guys are doing, to see it online and around. And I just think the question I probably have for you guys is, where do you find the time, and where do you find the ideas to be able to actually organise and put that out there?
I think just putting maybe 10 minutes into your day, each day, just to see what other creators are doing and sort of seeing if you can adapt and post out something similar. We've got the benefit of AI these days to help us create posts very, very quickly. So I think just organise, I'm sure you can find 10 minutes of your day just to do some social media work, and definitely over time you'll see the benefits, because that's what I did.
I don't think you make a good point though, Cameron. Social media isn't for everybody and it's not suitable for every business. But if you can utilise it and you can use it, then it's really useful. So we've talked a lot about the important aspects of income protection and building your business. As we come to the end of this segment, can I ask each of you to share what you would say to somebody who's either new to advising or new to actually talking and having conversations about income protection? Tara, can I come to you first?
Yeah, so I think the first thing would be, don't talk about the product, talk about the benefit, and try and get people to understand why they need it. They don't want to be bogged down in, compliance speak or, regulatory ins and outs. They want to know what the benefit to them is, how long it's going to last, what it's going to cost them. Those are the priorities for the customer. I think the other thing to do is to have a look at the IPTF website, because actually you've got loads of brilliant content on there, and also reach out to your BDMs. I've got some fantastic BDMs, and I can pick up the phone to them, ask them a question, they'll run training sessions with me. And as a new advisor in the protection space, it's really important to get to know each insurer, what their quirks are, how they differ, so that you can then be confident that you can help your customers with all different types of situations.
I think that's a really good point. I think some people don't think about their BDMs like that, but BDMs are generally really well trained. They know what they're talking about, and they are a huge asset to providers and insurers. So advisors really should reach out to them, and most advisors will have either a face-to-face or a phone BDM from most companies. So really important point. Thank you, Tara. Kevin, over to you. What would you say to you? You're quite new to advising, and therefore also talking about income protection. What would you say to somebody who's thinking about coming into our industry?
Well, it's funny what Tara said, actually, because I'm coming from the other side, previously being a BDM for a large insurer. And I think your BDMs are great, definitely use them, but the challenges being on this side is sometimes your BDMs won't be able to pick up the phone when it's 10 o'clock at night and you've got to get the suitability report done. And that's where you have to use the online resources available, because there's a whole heap of information online. And still email your BDM. You can always have a catch up with them tomorrow, but try not to stress and panic about the situation. Take a deep breath and see what's available online to help you, and actually reach out to other colleagues. I think advisors should be working together to support each other, because we're all aiming for the same goal, essentially.
That's a really good point. So Cameron, Kevin said about reaching out to other advisors. Obviously at the IPTF we have the 7 advisors, of which you all are, and each year we renew those, and the old advisors, if they want to, remain as ambassadors. How have you found support from your colleagues? Is that important to you?
Absolutely. I think if you don't have support from colleagues, it can be quite an isolating job to actually do. We spend all day speaking to clients, but when we're not with clients, we're locked away in a room somewhere at 10 p.m. at night, as Kevin says, writing suitability reports and paperwork and things like that. So making sure that you're keeping in touch with people who have the same passion and the same energy is really, really important. And I think to what I'd say to a new advisor, I think it would just be about having the passion for the product and for the need. It sounds kind of cheesy, but if you watch sort of enough claims stories or case studies and things like that and read into it enough, you will really see and understand why something like this is so important. And when you have that understanding yourself, it just emanates off of you. Clients will understand much quicker if you truly feel that way about it yourself.
Yeah. Okay. Well, some great insights there that you've all shared and experiences. So thank you very much for that. Really, really good. I think we've got IPAW off to a great start. So thank you very much for joining us. We hope this session has sparked an interest in you to have more income protection conversations. The truth is, income protection is at the core of financial resilience for individuals, for families, and for businesses. It's about protecting the income of real people so that should the unthinkable happen and an illness or injury strike, the one thing that someone does not need to worry about is how to pay their bills and retain the lifestyle that they've worked so hard to build. It sounds obvious, doesn't it? Maybe so, but we know that advisors sometimes create their own objections, and throughout this week we'll be sharing ways to overcome those. So now let's take a look at what some of our IPTF 7 advisors and ambassadors had to say.
So I think income protection should be part of every conversation because it is the foundation of everything. We need an income in order to pay our bills, to maintain expenditure, and the loss of income will mean that savings will run out and bills can't be paid. Income protection is an easy plug for that, to be able to guarantee an income for as long as you need it so that your expenditure can be met.
It's there to protect a client if, say, they do have critical illness cover. If they were to be diagnosed with something with a critical illness, it might not be claimable if it's not a critical illness, let's say. So it's really there to support the other policies like life and critical illness. If you signed off work by a doctor, you can't fulfill your occupation. So, you could be a joiner, you could be a director of your business. If you can't do that role, then you signed off work by a doctor and that's going to pay you a monthly income. So it really is the most claimable policy because it's the most likelihood of it happening to you instead of a critical illness.
Every client that I see is getting a mortgage, so every client is reliant on that income to get their mortgage, to pay their bills. So we have to talk to every single client.
I think it's one of the most important conversations to have with clients because the probability of being off long-term sick is greater than, passing away during your working life. And if you've got a family that relies on you and you rely on the income, why would you not protect it?
Income is at the centre of every single household. If you don't protect what's supporting the household, you're not protecting that client properly at all.
Quite simply, it's the protection that they are most likely to need at any point.
So income protection is a core part of our business at Radcliffe & Co. because as full financial planners, we're looking at the long-term financial solutions for our clients. We need to be able to get our clients to retirement age in a financially secure position so that they can then enjoy their retirement and draw down on those pension plans that we've worked hard to provide for them. Income protection allows financial contributions to be maintained so that when they get to retirement age, there's still a drawdown option with their pension fund.
Income protection is massively the core part of my business because all of my clients are mortgage related clients, so they are all using their income to get their mortgage. So I have to speak to them and make sure that if something happens to their income, they can keep paying their mortgage, and their bills and all of the other things. So it is absolutely the most important conversation that we will have.
Fundamentally, people need to have income to survive. Even if they're very, very wealthy and they've got a property portfolio, they're still relying on that income to pay for food and bills and holidays and all that sort of stuff. But the vast majority of us are not in that position. We rely on a PAYE income of, even if it's through your own business. And because that's such a fundamental need, it's such a fundamental policy to protect that requirement.
Well, it's the number one claimed on policy. Just to give you some statistics, LifeSearch has been in business since '98. We've got our own claims team here as well. Historically, income protection sales make up less than 10% of our book, but it makes up a third of all claims. Okay, a third. And that's half of those under 40 and half over 40, so there's no telling when you're going to need it.
And at the end of the day, most people's sick pay will run out at some point. So it's a great way of covering as many bases as possible, regardless of what's wrong with your client. If they can't work, their income protection policy is there for them.
Because it's the one that makes sense to people the most. Income protection is a core part of you staying in touch with your client consistently, because their income changes consistently, their need for how much income they changes all the time. So it's the one that keeps you close to your client. So why would you not put it at the heart of your business? Because it's the one that gives you consistency with that customer.
Great to hear a range of perspectives there. Next up, we're looking at the advice process, and we're delighted to welcome Martin O'Connell from the Protection Revolution.
I'm delighted to be joined today by Martin O'Connell, who has over 40 years of experience in financial services and now works at his own consultancy, the Protection Revolution. So Martin, thank you for joining us today. Today we're setting the scene for advisors who are interested in learning more about income protection and honing their skills. So we've already heard from some advisors about the advantages of including income protection in their advice process. And later we're going to be touching on mindset for advisors and recognising the key role that they play. But first, can we talk a little bit about the how? So how to get these conversations right. And if I've understood correctly, we need to stop talking about income protection. Is that right?
Well, my view, Jo, is that we need to stop talking about products at all, really, and try and focus on the problem and the financial implications of the problem. When something happens, what is the protection requirement? I think at the moment we try to take the products that we all know and love and try to fit them into that problem and fit them into the solution. And I think by doing so, you get conversations like, well, I try to upsell a little bit of kick, or when I go down the IP route, and that tells me that actually we're trying to sell policies as opposed to solving the problem of the illness or the premature death. For example, if you are diagnosed with cancer, for example, then certainly the first thing that needs to happen, I think, is that you need to replace something that is lost, your income that is lost, absolutely. Yeah. And so that is very much the first part of the solution, but there could be other parts as well. Zurich did a report a couple of years ago called The Hidden Cost of Cancer. And that concluded that on average, when somebody is diagnosed with cancer and needs treatment, they spend about another £500 a month on things like childcare, on hospital parking, goodness me, and things like that, and incidentals that you don't really think about. And so maybe in those circumstances, it's necessary to create a kind of a rescue fund as well, because IP is great, it's the first stop, but it doesn't cover that additional requirement. And so I think once you have talked to the client about the overall problem and what its complete financial implications are, then you can begin to bring products in. Yeah, that's what I mean about don't talk about IP.
Yeah, really taking them to the point where they can see what the need is.
Very much so. Yeah, very much so. Yeah.
So in the past, in IPAW, we've certainly mentioned the need to avoid jargon and focus on relatable language with clients. What you're suggesting is more than simple language, though, isn't it? It's about creating value in the customer's mind as part of a wider conversation about protection. Is that right?
Very much so, yeah, very much so. And I think that value starts with the advisor as well. I think what's necessary and sometimes missing in my experience is a kind of what I call an opening statement. Okay. What is the extent of the advisor's advice, particularly mortgage world? Mortgage world, it's very easy to say, right, I'll get your mortgage, or worry about protection later on, or even not mention it till later on. But I think there's an opportunity right up front to be saying, look, let's agree what your objective is here. Your objective is not actually to own the mortgage. That's not what you need the mortgage to get into your house. That's the first step. Your objective is to own the house. And so what can happen in the next 30 years while it takes you that long to own the house? Well, lots of things. My job is to make sure, as it says in Consumer Duty, to support you in achieving your financial objective. Yeah. Let's look at the next 30 years. Let's figure out what could happen. Let's make sure that along the way, whatever happens, you're still going to meet that objective. Is that okay? And that, I think, means an awful lot more to your client. Yes, they're desperate for the mortgage. They need to get the funds to get into the house. When they really think about it, as soon as somebody gets a mortgage, they're spending the rest of their life trying to get rid of it. And therefore, your job as an advisor is to say, well, let's make sure that you actually reach your objective. And that's what I mean about value.
What are some of the biggest mistakes that you've seen advisors make when they're trying to apply this, and how might they avoid those?
I think the biggest single mistake is that they inextricably tie their protection advice, when they give protection advice, to the mortgage itself. And they come up with this expression, which is mortgage protection. And I kind of understand that. It's a debt. It's a new thing in a client's life, potentially. But actually, in practice, it's not that different from paying a rent, in the sense that, it's a monthly outlay. So I think by tying the advice just to the mortgage debt, you automatically take yourself down that route, and therefore take your client down that route. And so, for me, the number one mistake is then, don't do that. A mortgage is just an opportunity. It's a change of circumstance, and it's an opportunity to review what the protection needs are. They could be different. It could be different amounts, but fundamentally, you need your income, and therefore fix that first.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think by focusing on need for clients, whether you're a mortgage advisor, a wealth advisor, or a protection specialist, this is going to be as relevant for you.
Very much so.
As a model to follow.
And I think the hierarchy actually helps with wealth advisors as well, because the questions, the order of needs are the same wherever any client is, whether they're getting a mortgage, whether they're renting, whether they're approaching retirement. The questions are the same. If this were to happen, what is your financial situation? And sometimes the need for replacing income isn't there. If somebody's got to the stage of that most of their income is through investment returns or through property portfolio, you don't lose that when you're ill. And therefore your need is something different, but it still follows the same hierarchy.
Yes, absolutely. You've already mentioned Consumer Duty once, and later in the week we will be considering the impact that Consumer Duty has had on the market. To your mind, has it encouraged better quality conversations with customers and clients?
If I'm honest, Joe, I'm not convinced that they're better quality. I think there's more of them. I think there's conversations that are taking place. If you remember the AMI's viewpoint report last November,
absolutely.
41%, I think it was, of advisors say they're having more conversations. That hasn't yet fed through to increased results by 41%. You look at the January report on quarter one 25 versus quarter one 24, it's better, but 2024 was a poor year. Actually, the results in quarter one 25 bring us fairly close to where we were in quarter one 23. So whilst more conversations may be happening, my fear, my suspicion, if you like, for want of a better way of putting it, is that they're taking place because Consumer Duty says they've got to. Your question was about the quality of the conversation. I'm not convinced that the quality is quite there. I think there is a bit of a skills gap across the profession, and I don't blame anybody for that. That's just the way it is. I think Consumer Duty, though, encourages advisors to sell, for want of a better way of putting it. I know that's not a very popular word, but when it says you've got to avoid causing foreseeable harm, how do you do that without selling? And so I think it encourages people to do that. In the end, Consumer Duty says you've got to deliver a good outcome. Every advisor needs to start from the point of view of understanding that only when those protection needs have been covered is that a good outcome for the client. When that happens and that belief happens, then I think Consumer Duty will have done its job.
Absolutely. So finally, in the spirit of this being Income Protection Action Week, we're looking for takeaways for our audience. So they're not just watching us, they're making plans. What is one thing that you would encourage advisors to go and do now to improve their advice conversations?
I think a lot of advisors certainly need to just take a step back and think about their process. Think about their fact-finding process. There's a difference, in my view, between fact-finding and getting to know your client. I think there's a skill there that is different. It's often said now, isn't it, that AI could complete a fact-find for you. Yes, it can.
Absolutely.
As far as I'm aware, machines and AI don't do emotion, and I think getting to know your client is more of an emotional journey for both you and the client. So I think advisors need to really be honest about what they do, how they give advice, take a step back, maybe talk to some people about how to improve that. There is, in my view, quite a big skills gap, and I think each individual has a responsibility to identify, well, maybe I've got a bit of a skills gap. Maybe I better do something about that.
Yeah.
Let's get more people covered.
Yeah, I think you raised some interesting points. I think when an advisor values their own role, realises that they can offer good advice that is life-changing for their clients, you really see the difference in the conversations that take place.
Very much so, and I think as well, I still get into conversations with advisors, mortgage advisors in particular, who still say things like, I haven't really got time for the protection. I don't like the underwriting or something that says, therefore I won't do the protection. It's got to be an integral part of the advice that they give. As I said earlier on, this is a 30-year process. Getting somebody to their financial objective of owning their home, a lot can happen in that time. It's got to be a part of the process, not just a bit that's tacked on the end.
Couldn't agree more. Well, Martin, thank you so much for your time today and helping set us up for a great week ahead.
No problem, thank you.
Thanks.
Some great points there. Let us know which ones resonated with you. Do you agree with what you heard? We'd love to know. Tag us in your thoughts. Next up, it's our mindset session, brought to you by IPAW regular and protection coach, the wonderful Matt Chapman.
Hi everyone, and a huge thank you to the IPTF for inviting me to be a part of this year's Income Protection Action Week. It's a real privilege to be here today. Now, I love this week because it puts the spotlight on something that, in my view, should be at the very heart of financial advice, and that's helping people to protect their ability to earn a living. And mindset, which is what I'm going to be talking about today, is the key to unlocking that. Now, for those of you who don't know me, I'm Matthew Chapman, the protection coach. I also happen to co-host the Let's Talk Income Protection podcast, where we shine a light on both the challenges and the incredible opportunities out there right now in the IP space. But let me start with this. After years of coaching advisors, training managers, and sitting in on thousands of client conversations, I can tell you with absolute certainty that the single biggest difference between advisors who absolutely excel when it comes to income protection and those who struggle isn't their knowledge, it isn't their technical skills, and it's not even their sales technique or the scripts. It's their mindset. And I want you to think about this for a moment. Whether you believe that you can or you can't succeed when it comes to recommending income protection, you're probably going to be right either way. Because if you go into conversations thinking this client won't be interested, or this policy is going to be too expensive, or I'll just throw in a short-term plan to keep it affordable, then guess what? You've already set the tone, and the outcome is actually likely to follow your level of belief or lack thereof. On the other hand, if you go in with the mindset that says, I believe in this, I know it's valuable, I know this client needs their income to achieve their goals, then suddenly your confidence, your conviction, and your passion will shine through. And clients pick up on that more than anything else. And that's why I always say mindset is everything. Now let's talk about the problem. So when it comes to income protection in the UK, the majority of policies being sold today are short-term plans. That means cover that pays out for just 1, maybe 2, or in some cases 5 years per claim. Now here's the reality. The average claim in the UK lasts longer than the longest short-term plan on the market. I want you to let that sink in for just a moment. On average, people are off work longer than their policy or even pay them for. So why is that? If we're really honest with ourselves, it's not because clients wake up in the morning thinking, you know what, I really want a policy that's going to stop paying me after 2 years, please. No one thinks like that. Clients don't even know these products exist until we tell them. So if it's not the client driving it, then where's the problem? It's us. It's the advisors. See, the real reason short-term outsells full-term isn't usually down to customer budget. It's the advisor mindset. You see, too many advisors are defaulting to short-term either because it feels easier to pitch or because they want the customer to at least take something, some cover's better than none, right? Or they're assuming the client won't want to pay for full-term cover without even testing that assumption first. Or they're just leading with the cheaper option or offering it up front, hoping that it sticks instead of truly exploring what the client needs. Let's talk very quickly about mindset traps, and let's be very honest with ourselves for just a minute. How many of us are falling into these traps without even realizing it? Let me list a few of them for you. And as I do, I want you to think about whether any of these sound familiar in your own advice conversations. Be very honest with yourselves. Have you ever issued a quote and thought to yourself, God, that's too expensive, or they're never going to pay for that? Or have you ever gone into a meeting already assuming the client isn't going to be interested in income protection? Have you looked at a client with a good job where you think good workplace sick pay is in place and you've thought to yourself, oh, they're not going to need this, instead of actually testing the assumption? Or maybe you've just offered short-term cover up front, not because it's the most appropriate solution, but because you thought it was the quickest way to get an IP sale across the line. Now, look, if you're nodding along to any of those, trust me, you are not alone. Most advisors at some point fall into one or more of these traps. I've coached some of the best performers in the industry, and even they would admit to it. You see, the danger is these aren't just harmless little shortcuts. They're proper mindset traps. They exist in your head, but they have very real world consequences for your clients. Let's take one of the big ones. I call it premium bias. This is where you compare the cost of a policy, the expense of a policy, the premiums of a policy to your own view of what's expensive or affordable for the customer. You think, well, I wouldn't pay that much, or that feels pricey to me. And without meaning to, you then project that onto the client. But here's the truth. You are not your client. Your client may value things completely differently to you. They may be willing to invest in their financial resilience in ways that you never imagined or wouldn't do yourself. Think about it. How many people spend hundreds of pounds a month on things like gym memberships, car finance, or even streaming services? Not because they need them, but because they see the value of them. Yet when it comes to safeguarding their income, the very thing that pays for all of those luxuries, we sometimes hesitate as advisors because we think the premium looks high. You see, when you lead with your own budget assumptions, you're not protecting, you're projecting. And here's the challenge I want to put to you. Next time you find yourself about to say, well, that feels expensive, stop. Ask yourself, expensive compared to what? Expensive compared to losing your income for the rest of your working life? Expensive compared to the cost of giving up your home or your lifestyle? When you start reframing it like that, suddenly the numbers look very different. You see, the bottom line is this. These mindset traps don't just limit your success as an advisor, they limit your clients' outcomes. And that's why we've got to tackle them head on. Now let's talk about value and worth. Let's talk about value versus price, because this is one of the biggest mindset barriers I genuinely see across our profession. Here's an analogy that I love. The cheapest new car that you can currently buy in the UK right now is the Dacia Sandero. It's not a bad car. It starts about £14,700. Now, if cost were the only factor in people's decisions, wouldn't every single one of us be driving a Dacia Sandero? It's brand new, gets you from A to B, it does the job. Why would anyone spend a penny more, right? But look about on the roads. Do you see everyone driving a Dacia Sandero? Of course you don't. You see Audis, BMWs, Range Rovers, Teslas. Why? Because people don't just buy transport, they buy comfort, reliability, safety rating, technology, status symbols, or even just the feel of driving something they actually enjoy. So here's the question. If no one applies a cheapest is best mindset when buying cars, why do we so often apply it ourselves when it comes to protection? It's the same story with houses. If it was purely about cost, every one of us would live in the cheapest house in the cheapest area that met our basic needs. A roof, 4 walls, running water, job done, right? But that's not what happens. People spend more, often significantly more, for things like location, for schools, for safety, proximity to family, or simply because the house feels right. They pay multiples of the minimum price because they see value in those factors, especially when they get a mortgage. Yet, when it comes to protecting that very same home that they value so much, and the income that even allows them to buy it or keeps it possible, how often do advisors then fall back into the mindset of, well, let's keep this as cheap as possible, right? It's almost as if we forget that value matters more than price. And let me tell you this very quickly. Clients will happily invest in better quality if they understand the why. They don't often buy on price alone. They buy on belief, on value, and the difference that it makes to their lives. And in our world, the why is so very clear. It's about financial resilience and financial survival. It's about being able to stay in that home, keep that lifestyle, maintain those choices when life takes a bad turn. So when we strip protection conversations down to cost, when we make it all about price, we do our clients a huge disservice. We reduce something that could be life-saving into just another product on a menu. Our job with the right mindset is to make protection feel as valuable as it truly is. Now, I'm going to talk very quickly now about income dependence, and I want you to think about this for a second because this is a shocking statistic. We spend roughly a third of our lives at work. 1/3. That's decades of our time, energy, and effort, all traded in exchange for income. Now, let me ask you this. How much is that then worth to you? If you could put a price tag on 1/3 of your entire life, what would it be? What would it be? Because here's the thing. Your clients are already putting a price on it. They're selling their time to an employer, a business, or a customer in return for income. That income is the foundation for everything else. It pays for the roof over their head, the car on their driveway, the food on their table, the school trips, the holidays, the little luxuries in life. Everything in their lifestyle is built on the assumption that that income is going to keep flowing. Now imagine just for a moment that income stops tomorrow. No more paycheck coming in. What happens then? The mortgage or the rent still needs paying. Those bills don't disappear. They don't stop even when we do. Kids still need feeding. Schools still need uniforms. Car still needs fuel. Life doesn't pause just because the income does. And that's why mindset matters, because when we recommend a policy that protects income and protects it for life if necessary, we're not just talking about something abstract. We're talking about safeguarding the one thing that underpins every single goal, every single plan, and every single dream that client has. And the irony? The cost of that protection is usually a tiny fraction of the very income it's designed to safeguard. So why do we as advisors sometimes make it all about the price? Why do we recommend policies that run out after 1, 2, or 5 years when the need doesn't run out? And that's mindset, guys. And quite frankly, it needs to change for a lot of us. Now let's talk about consumer duty and customer goals. And here's the thing. Everything I'm saying today on this recording isn't just my opinion. It's written into our regulation. Consumer duty makes it crystal clear. Firms must deliver good outcomes, including helping clients to achieve their financial objectives. Now, what does that really mean in practice? How do you translate that into normal speak? Well, it means aligning our advice with a client's why. Their goals, their dreams, their life plans. That's no longer optional for advisors. It's now a regulatory expectation. And here's the way I like to frame it. The only way to truly ensure that a client achieves their financial goals is to ensure those goals. Think about it. If a client comes to you with a dream of buying a home or paying for their children's education or retiring early, every single one of those goals depends on one thing and one thing alone, their income. Without it, those plans collapse. So this is not about selling more policies. It's not about pushing products onto people. It's about recognizing that every client has a goal in mind when they come and see you. Sometimes that goal is very obvious. I want to buy a house. I want to get a mortgage. Sometimes it's hidden under the surface. I want my kids to grow up in a secure, stable home with every opportunity that I can afford them. And here's the trap that most advisors often fall into. We make assumptions. We think we know what the client's goal is. We hear them say mortgage and we assume that that's the goal. Client came to me for a mortgage, not for protection. But is it? Of course not. The mortgage is just a means to an end. The real goal is home ownership, a place to live, to raise a family, to build a future, to invest in. And now here's the link. Income protection is what allows that bigger goal to survive when life gets messy, as it so inevitably does. You see, without it, the mortgage payments don't get made. Without the income, the client can't actually borrow. And the client risks losing the very thing that they actually came to you for, which wasn't the mortgage, but home ownership. And when you, as the advisor, draw that line for the client, when you connect to their goal, they really care about the income that then makes it possible. Suddenly, income protection then stops looking like a bolt-on product and it becomes the fundamental foundation, the safety net that keeps their dreams alive. And that's not just a better mindset. That's a more compliant mindset because it's focused on outcomes. It's focused on doing the right thing. And that will inevitably lead to stronger trust, better relationships, happier clients, and stickier protection recommendations. What's not to love, right? So here's the challenge I'm offering you guys. Don't assume that you know the customer's goals. Ask those extra questions. Dig a little deeper. And when you understand what truly motivates them, you will find it so much easier to show them how valuable income protection really is. So let's think about how we frame our advice for a minute. Let's talk about how we frame what we do and how we shift it. Because the way we position income protection in our own minds completely changes the way clients then see it too. So we have to stop thinking like sellers and to start thinking like doctors. Now, imagine for a moment that you go to your GP, right? You sit down, you explain your symptoms, and the doctor says, well, I've got 3 different versions of this medicine for you. One's strong, one's weak, and one stops working after 2 years. Which one do you fancy? Now, what would you think if the doctor said that to you? You'd probably panic, wouldn't you? You'd wonder if the doctors lost their mind or actually knew what they were bloody doing. You'd feel uncertain, and you'd almost definitely lose confidence in them. Because that's not what doctors do, is it? They prescribe what's best after they've assessed the symptoms. Full stop. They act with authority, they act with certainty, and they act with conviction. And that's what gives you the confidence in the prescription they're giving you. They don't expect you to know the right treatment or to choose. They know the right one and they guide you to it. And that's the exact mindset shift that we need as advisors. Your clients don't come to you for a shopping list or a list of options. They don't want to be handed a menu with no clear direction or instruction. They want your conviction. They want to feel like they're in safe hands, that you know what you're doing and that you know what's best to protect them. So they can see that. So here's the question. When you recommend income protection, do you recommend it like a doctor prescribes medicine, with certainty, with authority, and without hesitation? Or do you caveat it? Do you say things like, you don't have to take this one, or it's optional, or we can reduce the benefit, or this is the expensive one, but there's a cheaper version here? Because the moment you do that, you've undermined your own advice. You've made it look like 1, it doesn't really matter, and 2, that it's all about price. And here's the mindset shift that I think is so important. You're not just protecting your clients, you're protecting your own advice too. Think about it. If you spent time building a mortgage plan or designing an investment strategy or a pension plan, what happens to that plan if the client's income stops? Collapses overnight. The plan's no longer achievable. Everything that you've worked towards with your client begins to fall apart. So income protection isn't a nice to have. It's not a bolt on. It's the foundation that allows the rest of your advice to continue to stand strong and for clients to execute the very advice you're giving them. And when you start thinking that way, when you recommend income protection with the same conviction that a doctor does when they prescribe medicine, your clients will feel the difference. They'll see you as the expert, not as a seller, and they'll be far more likely to follow your advice. Now, I want to very quickly leave you with some actionable steps. So let's try and make this a bit practical. There's not much point listening to me as a coach talk if you don't have some actionable things that you can start doing straight away. So I'll leave these with you. Number 1, run an income stress test with every client you speak to. Don't just ask, do you want to look at some income protection? Ask them to picture what life looks like when their income stops for 6 months. Then stretch it. What about 1 year? What about 5 years? What if it never comes back? Ask your clients, is your income guaranteed for the duration of the mortgage term that we're recommending or the pension plan that we're looking at? Because when your clients feel the reality of what losing income means, the conversation changes, especially when it's linked to their goals. You're no longer talking about a policy. You're talking about their lifestyle, their home, their family, and their goals. And once you've made it real, the value of full-term protection becomes blindingly obvious. Number 2, stop leading with short-term. Short-term has its place, okay? But let's be honest, too many advisors use it as the easy option. Sometimes they can quickly offer it to get a yes and then move on, right? But I want you to flip that around. Make full-term income protection your default position. Position short-term as the compromise, the fallback, and the last resort, but only if the client's prepared to make compromises. It's not about whether you can convince them to take full-term cover, but whether they can convince you they don't need it. Because if you make short-term the starting point, you'll always sell short-term. And if you make full-term the standard, you would be amazed how many clients step up to it. Number 3, challenge your own premium bias. This one's big. We all carry our own baggage around about money. We think this is expensive. We think that's cheap. We think people will or won't pay what we're saying. But here's the truth. Your view and my view is completely irrelevant. Your job isn't to decide whether a premium is too high or not. Your job is to identify the need, explain it clearly, and let the client decide what they value enough to invest in or what they're prepared to compromise. So the next time you catch yourself thinking, they'll never pay that, stop. That's your bias talking, not theirs. Number 4, anchor value to their lifestyle. Don't just talk about income in abstract numbers, link it to what it actually does. Say things like, well, this pays for your mortgage, it allows you to refinance in 5 years, it covers your holidays, your gym membership, your school trip, things like that. The things that you see in their budget planner and in the bank statements that you're analysing. Because when clients see that income protection isn't about an insurance policy, but about protecting all the very things they currently spend their money on, that they work hard for and that they love, the conversation becomes far more powerful. Number 5, lead with conviction. Recommend it as if they were going to accept it, right? Just like a doctor prescribing medicine, deliver advice with confidence, without hesitation, with no caveats. Don't apologize for price, because here's the truth. If you don't act like your recommendation is essential, why on earth would your client think it is? And finally, number 6, be more assumptive in a positive, aspirational way. I do not mean pressure clients or push them or back them into a corner. I mean use language that assumes that they see the value because you believe in it yourself. For example, instead of saying, would you like to take this policy then? Say, when we get this cover in place, you'll have the peace of mind knowing your income safeguarded, your goals are achievable no matter what happens. That's not pushy, it's confident. It shows conviction. It demonstrates that you see protection as the natural, sensible step for anyone who relies on their income, which is pretty much every client you're ever going to meet. Together, those 6 steps are practical, simple, and hopefully they'll transform your protection conversations. They shift you out of selling mode and into expert mode, where protection advice flows naturally and clients feel compelled to act on it. Now, let me leave you with this, if you don't mind. You guys are the last line of defense when it comes to your clients' financial security and their financial resilience. When life goes wrong, when illness strikes, when accidents happen, when income suddenly stops, your advice can be the very thing that keeps a family in a home, keeps a business afloat, or keeps a client's dreams alive. That is no small thing. That is an incredibly noble role. And yet too often advisors forget just how much influence they really have on people's lives. The truth is this. The client will only ever place as much emphasis on protection as you do. If you treat income protection as optional, they'll see it as optional. If you present it as an afterthought, well, they'll treat it as an afterthought. But if you talk about income protection with conviction, if you position it as central to achieving their goals, then trust me, they'll see it as essential too. And here's the real kicker. At the end of the day, clients either need their income for life or they don't. And let's be honest, they probably do, which means our advice should always match that need, full term, for as long as that income is required. Income Protection Action Week is your chance to stop, reflect, and ask yourself, how can I protect more incomes? How can I protect them for longer? How can I use my influence to create better customer outcomes? If you focus on those questions, if you take even one of the mindset shifts we've talked about today and put it into action, you'll not only improve your own results, you'll transform the lives of the clients you serve. So be proud of what you do, believe in it, and act like it matters, because trust me, guys, it does. Thank you so much for tuning in today.
Before we wrap up today, remember that this week is about taking action. So before you get back to the day job, think about what you could do differently as a result of day 1.
Join us tomorrow when we have some new topics for IPAW. We're very excited to be talking about business protection and small group schemes. And if you think these are topics that are not relevant to you, we urge you to think again. Tune in tomorrow to find out why, and also to see objection handling in a way that you've never seen it before. I'll say no more, and we'll see you tomorrow.